everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to be covering a piece from the new canon novel Brotherhood by Mike Chen. This book is a really cool one, as it takes place right after Attack of the Clones, following the story of Anakin and Obi-Wan at the very start of the Clone Wars, and we get some great characterization for the two, especially Anakin, as we get to see his thoughts regarding the war, Padme, and even having to deal with his new robotic arm. It's all very interesting. And for today, we will cover a passage that goes over Anakin's knighthood and all of his thoughts during the ceremony. This video will be long, but it's extremely interesting. And so, with that being said, let's dive straight into it. Anakin Skywalker stood as he always did, feet planted slightly wider than his hips in a balanced stance, arms behind him with his hands clasped at the small of his back. Hand, actually. One of his limbs remained, his organic arm, part of the flesh and blood born of Shmi Skywalker and raised under the unflinching desert suns of Tatooine. The other hand was metal and wire and sensors, a synthetic extension that moved nearly but not quite the way he intended. Not perfect yet, but he was getting better at it. And though the textures of the mechanical replacement were so unnatural that he covered it with a glove, his wife never treated its touch as anything but his own. At least in the short time they were able to be together following his duel with Count Dooku. His wife. Where was she right now? Senator Padme Amidala, always meeting with people or talking about people. She'd returned to Coruscant and was likely heading to the Senate District, a single beacon of hope dashing somewhere through this massive structure of a planet. Anakin closed his eyes while Jedi Master Mace Windu continued to talk to the assembled, the latest group of recently promoted Jedi Knights. For thousands of generations, the Jedi had their traditions of trials and ceremony, of ascending rank and recognizing achievement, but that was before Geonosis, before the Clone Wars started, before an oath to be peacekeepers somehow evolved overnight into roles as soldiers and commanders. An overlap the clones themselves couldn't quite comprehend, leading to the informal title of General on the battlefield. Anakin had always imagined his knighthood to be a significant milestone, a sea change in his heart and mind. Enough time had passed since the official transition that his once short hair had started to grow out, and now this ceremony felt more like a procedural step, a footnote to go along with the bigger issues facing the galaxy. This gathering, filled with ceremony in the shadow of the Jedi Temple training courtyard, seemed simply unimportant. So much so that an urge tugged at Anakin to go, to fast forward the cadence of the galaxy itself so he could finally reunite with his wife tonight. He had, after all, a keepsake to deliver within the small pouch buckled to his belt. Master Windu walked the perimeter of the courtyard under the shadow of the great tree, Anakin standing with the rest of the new Jedi Knights, while behind them current Padawans observed. To his left, de Bourbon went hard, the Thorlosian notable throughout training for her twin Shoto lightsabers. To his right, Kirsten Watt, Olana Shion, and several others. Across the courtyard stood their mentors, at least the ones available, Morag Bomo, Kaldor, with black tunic and blue-tinted goggles, Siri Tachi, Madark Risto, and more. And of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the newest member of the Jedi Council, sort of. After the loss of Coleman Trevor at Geonosis, various Jedi rotated into his council position. No one would say if this method was permanent or if the rotations were simply temporary assignments, something born out of necessity given the push and pull of the war. Either way, the council had recently picked Obi-Wan for a rotation. In turn, Obi-Wan approached every task with his usual seriousness, even treating this glorified speech like a war decision. Anakin didn't need the Force to feel the weight of his former master's stare. Behind his back, Anakin's fingers balled into fists, the synth-net neural interface of the mechanical arm reacting the same way as his real hand did. And yet, it didn't. Just as with his organic hand, the mechanical fingers pressed in frustration. But no emotion came from the gesture on that side. No tiny ripple through the Force to yet again give away his feelings to Obi-Wan. It was merely a limb, functional, even stronger than flesh and bone, but not a true part of him.
You are Jedi Knights.
Master Mace Windu's voice boomed out as he paced back and forth, as if to call for any waning attention to his intimidating form.
responsibility, peace, discipline. You are the examples the galaxy looks to. Your success will carry through the Republic and beyond, as will your mistakes. Your choices will matter, helping the Jedi maintain order during a time of discord.
The Master paused, his lips pursed in thought. Anakin figured Mace have given a form of his speech several times now since Geonosis, but perhaps this time he tried his hand at improvisation.
The younglings look up to you, your choices matter to them, and some of you will receive Padawans of your own. Your choices will matter to them as well.
Mace enunciated each word with heightened dictation. The thought caused Anakin's lips to curl up ever so slightly. A Padawan? For him? That sounded like the worst thing in the galaxy, and as if on cue, his eyes caught Obi-Wan looking directly at him. Of course, Obi-Wan saw his smirk. Anakin forced his expression back to neutral, then adjusted his posture, pushing his chest out and chin up to uphold Jedi formality. If he had been speaking, his voice would have reverted to the formal monotone he always used around Elder Jedi.
We are at war. This is unprecedented within our lifetimes,
Mace continued.
And you are among the first to reach knighthood during this time of war. Remember that war is like a fire across the galaxy. It spreads and consumes. We must never waver in the face of that fire. We are keepers of the peace. We are Jedi. The Republic needs us more than ever, which means our faith in the Force, our connection to the Force, must never waver.
Though Mace's face remained stoic and cold, Anakin detected the most unexpected shift coming from him. A single drop in the ocean of the Force, but it rippled outward. And while most probably didn't notice it, Anakin had always found his senses tuned in to emotions at a far deeper level than others. Maybe because he actually let himself feel emotions. He reached into the Force for a further understanding of what this strange deviation was. Was that concern from Mace Windu? But the ripple had passed, evaporating as would happen with any Jedi in their emotions. Anakin wanted to shake his head, figuring the moment was nothing more than the extension of Mace's constant disdain for his being there, his very existence. From the moment Qui-Gon Jinn presented Anakin to the debriefing after Geonosis, Master Windu always seemed irked by his presence, like he should not have even been there. One time, Anakin caught his look when fellow Padawans mentioned the Chosen One prophecy, in jest, of course, and the power of his instant glare felt more deadly than his renowned fighting technique. Anakin rubbed him the wrong way. He always had, and this was probably just another example. Anakin reminded himself to be bigger than that petty moment and push it aside. He took in a breath, and though his eyes tracked Mace during the rest of the speech, his mind wandered to his childhood. The ceremony played out as the opposite of those Tatooine nights when the desert chill would work its way through the cracks of their worn-down home. Rather than the cold, grand speech amid the Jedi Temple's exquisite designs, he thought of his mother retelling a story for the untempted time in their small hovel, the warmth of her hand enough to reassure his whole body and mind. The sun dragon lives inside a star, guarding everyone it loves and treasures, she would say, as she had done so many times throughout his childhood. Generations of Tatooine dwellers heard the same story told within their own family variations, but his mother's version carried the most feeling, appropriate for a myth about heart. It guarded them through the fire and flame, always keeping them safe. It could preserve through anything, even life within a star itself, because the Sun Dragon has the biggest heart in the galaxy, a furnace of flames powerful enough to protect everything and everyone it loves. The strongest heart, stronger than the heart of a star. She told Anakin this story dozens, possibly hundreds of times when he was growing up, usually after he'd gotten into an argument with Kickster, or Watto was unnecessarily cruel, or one of his inventions exploded in his face. Those were the moments she'd always squeeze his hand and look him straight in the eye. You are the Sun Dragon. You have the strongest heart. Always believe in it. Suddenly, the loving face of Shmi Skywalker disappeared from Anakin's mind, replaced with the blistering cool of night, the flicker of flame, the cries of sand, the smell of blood. All through these thoughts, he stood stoic alongside his fellow Jedi Knights, fighting to keep his feelings at bay. Another memory arrived with a surprise, one that draped calm over the open wounds of Tatooine. It echoed, a feeling as real as the moment it first happened. The strong hands of Qui-Gon Jinn on his shoulders, his shooting words whispering in his ears. It wasn't the first time he'd felt the presence of the fallen Jedi, whether a flash of deep memory or one of the Force's great tricks in his favor. The presence always recentered him in a way that Obi-Wan's lectures never did.
It is your time to serve the galaxy and the Republic,
Mace said.
May the Force be with you.
I hope you all enjoyed this really cool passage from the second chapter of the book. I think it's really cool seeing Anakin's thoughts and feelings during this pivotal moment in his Jedi career. If you want us to cover more excerpts like this from the book and bring it to life, let us know down below in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, it really means a lot. Stay tuned for the next episode of Star Wars Remnants, and until then, our fellow Force users, may the Force be with you.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.